John 21 verse 25. And there are also many other things that Jesus did, which if they were written one by one, I suppose that even the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. Amen. I once told Jesus during my prayer time that I longed to get to know him more. And he granted my wish by showing me a series of 3 visions. Firstly, I saw Jesus sitting on the beach talking to his disciples. In the vision, my head was poking out of Jesus' chest, sort of like how you would stick your head through the parting of a curtain to look through to the other side. It was like Jesus was the veil and I was peeking through him, looking at the faces of the 12 disciples as he taught them. In this moment, I also sensed the love that he had for these men. They were imperfect humans, just normal men, but he had so much love for them. I had the sense that they were like his children and his brothers and his friends all at the same time. The next scene I was taken into was Jesus walking through a crowd. This time I was seeing the vision from behind. From the right, I noticed a woman on the ground, desperately reaching out towards Jesus. She managed to grab the edge of his hem, and then I saw him turn his body to the right. I only saw the side of his face. In the next vision, I saw Jesus standing next to 2 disciples and a young boy. The boy was holding up 2 fish towards Jesus. I knew Jesus was about to perform the miracle where he would feed 5,000 men. Then I was shown a scene that I've never read in the Bible. The vision took place in what looked like part of a market in an old city. It reminded me of the city of Jerusalem from what I've seen in pictures and movies. My attention was drawn to a woman weaving a reed basket. Her fingers were nimble as she worked. She was leaning against a big rock. Next to her was a pile of baskets that already were finished. Then I saw Jesus approaching her. He looked tired and dirty, as if he'd been walking a long time in the hot desert. He sat himself next to her and leaned back on the rock. Then he took out some bread from a little pouch he was carrying and offered her some. It was then that I noticed that the woman was blind. It was in the way that she turned her head to hear him speak. She inclined her ears towards him, but her eyes did not move to look at him. They stared straight ahead. As they shared the piece of bread, Jesus drew her into conversation. I did not hear what they were saying, but they were both smiling and sometimes laughing. I was so touched to see how Jesus, although exhausted and tired from a long trip, was still caring enough to be friendly to this woman and just talk to her and share his bread with her. And then something amazing happened. The woman stopped talking, stared in front of her, and then suddenly stood up. She started looking around her, fixing her eyes on different objects in the marketplace. She started shouting at the top of her voice, "I can see! I can see!" Jesus had just performed a miracle on her unawares during their conversation. She was so excited. She kept shouting and telling the people that were going by. Honestly, I don't know what language she spoke, but I understood it in English. Wow, that's Jesus right there. The next scene I saw was Jesus, still at the same marketplace, carrying a large basket on his back filled with bread. I assumed the basket had been woven by the old woman. There were many dirty children around him, and Jesus was handing bread out to them. I understood that they were orphans. There was so much compassion on his face. His love was just radiating out from him. And the next scene, I found myself standing next to Jesus. We were surrounded by the orphans and the poor. I said to Jesus, "Where do I even start, Lord? There's so much need." And he replied, that's the key word. Just start somewhere. And the last scene, I was sitting next to Jesus, our backs leaning against the rock where the old blind woman had sat. The Lord said to me, if you really want to know me, then sit with the poor. My heart is with the orphans. My heart is with the widows. To know me, you must sit with the poor. Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh. Then your light shall break forth like the morning, your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. Isaiah 58, verse 6 to 8.